Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. I've had this knife for some time, but never got around to talking about it on the channel. Mainly because I bought this knife at the same time that I bought another knife in this series. This is out of the Patriots, Founders of Our Democracy series. It's a knife that was created by Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and it was inspired by an ancestor of Kevin Pipes. One of his ancestors was a captain who served under General Washington, and so I think that's part of the linkage to these knives. In any case, this is the one called Liberty Bell. I talk more about the Founders of Our Democracy series in the other knife that I had, which was the Birth of Old Glory. Still have this knife too. And I will link to this video at the end of this video. So if you want to hear more about the series, then go to that one. But we're just going to look at this knife right now. And this is the moose, the large moose that is in the series. One of the cool things about the series is it comes with a coin. And this series is still available. There's still knives in this series that are available. And it comes with the Rough Rider coin. So if you're a coin collector, you know, one of those challenge coin people, you can get a Rough Rider coin with these knives. Backside, Founders of Our Democracy 76, Patriots, and then the front side, RR established 1994. And every knife comes with a coin, so that's pretty cool. Might have to get another one of these knives. In any case, the moose here, it's pretty cool. I like it. This one honors the Liberty Bell. We see here, Liberty Bell, proclaim liberty throughout the land. Proclaim liberty through all of the land unto all of the inhabitants thereof. And that is a quote that you will find on the Liberty Bell. It actually originates from one of the books of the Bible, Leviticus 25:10 is where you will find that quote in the Bible. And then on the other side, you have the Liberty Bell, a nice little inscription. Notice the reverse frosted blade edge on the knife there. So I could go into great detail on this knife, talking about it, how well it is made and everything else. You can kind of see that right down the center there is a little bit of a line. But all in all, the build quality of this knife is exceptional. It's typical of what you get with a Rough Rider knife, and the cool thing is you also get the coin, which you don't get with a lot of Rough Rider knives. The only place I'm aware of a Rough Rider coin showing up is in the Liberty Bell or the Patriots, Founders of Our Democracy series. So if you want a coin, you need to go and grab one from this series. I'm not going to go into great detail on how well this knife is made. It is exceptional, like I mentioned. However, the real reason I wanted to talk to you is because of this moose frame that is used on this knife. As you can see, I've got a few other knives with this frame. I've got the Crackle Stone. This was the first one I picked up. I picked it up because it was unusual and it kind of fit in with the Stonework series, and it was on sale. I got it for like $8. And then I picked this one up because it was in the tortoiseshell, and I collect just about everything in tortoiseshell. If there was one in white smooth bone, I would grab it right away as well. This one, as you can tell, was in Stoneworks, and it's a small moose, but I liked it. And so I grabbed that one because it was in the Stoneworks series. This one I picked up because it was in the Liberty Bell series, or it had the Liberty Bell on it. And I was thinking about picking up every knife in this series. I have not done that yet. However, I got to tell you, every one of them is still available. But in any case, the cool thing about this is the more I used this knife, the more I started liking it. I thought it was funky at first, especially the spay blade here, because the spay blade, it looks pretty cool, but the shape of it is just kind of awkward looking, especially with the long swedge there and where it lands on the when you're cutting. But the more I've used it and held it, the more I actually like it, because see that your hand is off the ground when you're cutting with it. And I can picture that this would probably be good for scraping and stuff. I've scraped enough stuff with knife blades to know when a knife blade will work good for scraping or not. And the angle of this is actually quite remarkable to me. I've gained a new appreciation for it. I really have. Also, I like that funky shape of it. But what really put me over the edge is when I got into a conversation with a person at SMKW about this frame, because I actually asked them, who came up with this, the funky frame here? Was this something that Jim Parker came up with? Was this something that one of the designers at SMKW came up with, this funky shape? Because the only place I've seen this moose frame used was in the Colt line and then in the Rough Rider line. And I'm not even 100% sure I saw it in the Colt line, but I thought I did. And I was wondering, is this something that Parker was making before SMKW started making it? Because, there's things in the, Colt United line and stuff like that. Well, it turns out, no. This was not dreamed up by Parker. It was not dreamed up by Frost. Where it came from was from an old knife catalog that Kevin Pipes had. Apparently, Kevin Pipes was at an estate sale, bought all sorts of old knife catalogs at some estate sale, and within one of those catalogs, this knife appeared. This style of moose appeared, and that catalog actually dated from 1890. So this was a knife. This pattern of moose was in a knife catalog from the 1890s. This is not something that was dreamed up in the 21st century or something like that. This goes back a while. So the pattern itself, with these funky blades, this shape of blade on a frame, on this funky concave, I guess opposite end jack. It dates from the 1890s, which is pretty cool to find out. Now, what the folks at SMKW had to do is they had photos of the knife, or they had drawings of the knife from the catalog, such as this. And then they had to figure out how to get this knife to work properly. So the way the channel is set up, the kicks on the blade and everything else, that was what they had to do with their knife designing. They had to come up to find a way to make this knife work the way it works. But it was based off of an old drawing from the 1890s, including the shape of the blades and everything else. So this was not some concocted thing of like, oh, let's take the moose and make it look fancy and schmancy and all that other stuff. No, this was, look at that. Is that not a cool looking moose that they saw that somebody had come up with in the 1890s? And they said, that is cool. Let's take that knife and let's bring it back to life. That's really what they did with it. And when you hear that, suddenly it becomes a more interesting knife to have in the collection. And that's really one of the things that made me think, why did somebody in 1890 come up with this when there was already another moose, and say, no, this is the way I want to do it? And somebody made it this way, purpose-built the knife this way in order for them to use it for cleaning and skinning game. And then I started thinking twice about the knife. Maybe it's more than just a funky looking knife. Maybe it's actually a functional, useful knife that just happens to look funky and cool. Why the pattern drifted away? Well, the original moose pattern also kind of drifted away. The large opposite end jacks started fading from memory after World War I because, well, the urbanization of America, I mean, it really did shrink knives down. You didn't need that big of a knife in your pocket. There wasn't a need for it, and so on and so forth. So we started getting smaller knives, and I think that's why maybe they came out with the smaller moose, because this is a much more pocket-friendly knife, and has kind of the same functions, but in a much smaller packet, 4¼ inches, 3½ inches. This one I am much more likely to carry, even though, now you're talking about skinning a squirrel instead of skinning a moose, right? Anyway, the one thing about this knife, though, that I'm hoping Rough Ryder does a little bit more with this moose. And one of the things I would love them to do is come out with a third carnivore jack and use this moose frame for that carnivore jack. And, come out with carnivore jack 3, I guess. This is the carnivore jack 2, which is on a moose frame, if I can get it out of the sheath. Here we go. And you can see here the carnivore jack 2. The frame on this moose is a little bit bigger. And we have a serrated clip blade on the carnivore jack 2. I think this knife would be really slick with a fine edge clip blade and a serrated spay blade. I think that'd be fantastic. This spay blade serrated. I like that. That's one of the things I was not crazy about with the carnivore jack 2. I don't know why they made the clip blade serrated. I would have much rather had this blade serrated on this knife, and that's why they could rectify that problem now by making a serrated spay blade on this knife and coming out with a carnivore jack 3. And as long as you've done that, well, you got the little moose too, just as well come out with a carnivore jack 4 with a serrated spay blade on that knife. And this knife, I've talked about this one in the past. I really think this frame has so much potential with the secondary slot over here. You could put a little pen blade on there. You could put a cap lifter screwdriver on there. This could end up being a wonderful piece of pocket jewelry. It's almost the size of a 5th pocket knife. So this is a wonderful frame. I do like it. At first I thought this spay blade was a little too funky, but after using it a little bit, I've come to appreciate that angle of going downward, and I think this would be an excellent steak cutting knife. And so come out with a carnivore jack 4 or 3 with this frame. I think it'd be a really good seller. The carnivore jacks are a good seller to begin with, but a carnivore jack 3 with a serrated spay blade, I think that'd be a really big hit. And same with the 4. But anyway, this frame itself is just pretty cool. I really do enjoy it now. And now that I've learned a little bit more of the history and the fact that this was actually purpose built for the entire reason that a moose knife was built to begin with, for skinning game and everything, I can appreciate that shape of the blade and how that spay blade lays into the handle and everything else, because it's a very low profile when this blade is open, and that funky shape is much more useful than I originally thought. So there you have it. There's my take on that funky looking moose that Rough Ryder makes. In any case, hope you enjoyed that, and I'm really hoping to see a carnivore jack 3 with a serrated spay blade. That would be so cool. Anyway, I will talk to you again soon. me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with Tobias. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.